I'm excited to announce our upcoming 2023 Banking with Life client-only event. It's going to happen in mid-October of 2023. It's going to happen downtown Fort Worth, Texas. Our whole team will be there. The team has been working very hard to make this an event that's not to be missed. I'll be there, have an opportunity to meet me, have an opportunity to meet the team. I'm going to be speaking. We'll have other guest speakers, and you'll have the opportunity to meet a room full of like-minded people. Think about that. A room full of people that are practicing becoming their own banker. They are practicing the infinite banking concept. You'll have the opportunity to meet with them and share with them. You got to be somewhere. You might as well be there. In this episode, Ryan and I discuss how to navigate a professional relationship. We had fun and hope you enjoy listening. Thank you. Welcome to the Banking with Life podcast. I'm your host, James Neathery.
I'm your co-host, Ryan Griggs.
It's been a minute since the young world traveling Mr. Griggs has been down here in the world headquarters of Banking with Life. Welcome. How are you?
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a little while. Lots of travel.
Well,
personal and business stuff in June. Here we are in July 2023.
Did you take a lot of photos?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a big photo taker, but yes.
Cool.
And then just being busy, buying a house and trying to get this book in order. People have been asking about the book, so you hear me mention it, and it is coming. I contracted with a publication services company to handle things like design and distribution and things like that. And they proceeded to go right under.
What? Undercapitalized, under? Out of business, under?
Yeah. Nobody knows any details, of course, because whoever does. But yeah, they've effectively disappeared. So I now get to take back control over doing all of those little things that they were going to handle, which is fine. I mean, it's good. It's going to work out better than it would have otherwise. But
yeah,
I think 3 months ish. So I think probably October, November. Here I am saying it, put it out in the world.
October's a great month to release a book.
Sure.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. I mean, yesterday would have been a great day too.
Well, you missed that one. So we're talking about when, in the future, October, November. Both, whatever. Don't rush it. Just take your time. It's going to be done right. It is done right. It's written well. It's so take the appropriate amount of time to keep the standard. Because all of us can just go anywhere on the internet and buy marketing pamphlets or rehashed books or people that wrote a book, after they learned how to spell ABC. Listen, I'm full of love and full of grace. This book is not that. A marketing pamphlet. Okay, so.
Yeah, and I have an editor, I went and found a freelance type editor, which all editors are freelance, really.
Well, did you just get laid off from that other company that went under?
And it's difficult too, because the subject, it is, like, to your point, it's not rehashing becoming your own banker. I mean, it's in the introduction. It's like, you should go read this other book first. This isn't going to make sense. It's meant to fill the gap between becoming your own banker and I know how, I at least know the language and the mental framework to understand how what's in becoming your own banker might apply to my own life in these current circumstances, 2023, 20 plus years after the publication of the book. And so it's meant to fill that gap. And so the material to the totally uninitiated is going to seem pretty high level. Like, it's not going to
make all right. They're smart. Sense. They can read. They can understand.
Yeah, well, I mean, you think like a paid professional editor would, but I
was talking about the prospective reader in the future.
They probably know better, because someone who watches the podcast or has seen the Mechanic series or has read Becoming Your Own Banker or Building Your Warehouse of Wealth or watched Nelson's seminar or watched the Banking with Life DVD, they're going to come with a better foundation, and hopefully it'll make more sense to them than it would for a totally uninitiated but ostensibly professional editor. My problem is I get the feedback from the editor, and it's like there's not a lot there, and I'm catching things.
Well, you're a pretty good writer, so there might not be a lot there.
Yeah, it's just hard to know. And
then they've not read all of this. They're completely foreign to this idea of controlling the banking function. They're probably reading something 2 or 3 times, not looking for editorial corrections, but just trying to wrap their mind around what you're saying.
Yeah. That is what's happening. And it's it's now I'm on the second editor where I've had that type experience. So at some point, I'm just going to have to say, look, this is technically and conceptually correct. The language is good, like stylistically, it makes sense, it's readable, and good is better than perfect, and get it out there and get it done, and stop talking about it. Right?
Your lips to God's ears.
Yeah, it's time. And it's a lot. I mean, 67,000 words. So it's 250, 300 pages.
Perfect. So it's not going to be an epitome, but it's going to be not a pamphlet.
Significant.
Either.
Yeah. Chunky.
Well, good. We are all looking forward to it. I mean, really, the acknowledgments, made me squirt a little. I'm telling you, it's like bring a tear to your eye. Okay, well, perfect. You have, I say perfect. I do want to move on to the next conversation because, it's been a minute. And so a lot of things come up between the times we sit down and record. And so many things come up that are worthy to discuss and talk about and speak, and share and for people to hear. You can't remember them all.
No.
But you've got a few, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. Well, I've certainly noticed, I was thinking on my way over here, I've certainly noticed that people, just in my little slice of experience, are coming to the table, coming to the process, coming to me in particular, more prepared.
Yeah.
They've, I think the mechanic series that is on my YouTube channel has been helpful in that regard, but there's the sort of entry level understanding that threshold is rising, which is great. It means we can spend much more time going deeper on an individual's own particular circumstances and talking in more advanced terms, strategically, even if it's just brainstorming about the future, passive cash flow late in life, what's that look like? How does purposely running a policy loan balance interact with the potential liquidation of other assets late in life, to have a nice, smooth, legally minimize, as little going through probate as possible type intergenerational capital transfer process, and stuff where you wouldn't have time to cover that kind of more advanced material if you're spending a whole bunch more time just on the basics of what is a whole life policy and what's a PUA rider. And so I think that's great. I think that threshold is rising. I get more and more people all the time who already have some, but oftentimes a significant amount of the vocabulary necessary to, I don't want to say criticize like in a negative sense, but to like voluntarily provide a criticism of what they have done in the past and like what was wrong with it, right? Whether it's in whole life or whether it's just in conventional financial type things, tax qualified plans, like they're providing a report, an analysis of their own prior decisions and saying, I've learned this, and this is what I see.
And they're trying to help you, help them.
Yeah.
So that's important.
But it's the coolest. I mean, I come at this, economist background, wanted to be a professor. I mean, the coolest part in teaching, this happened a lot in mock trial too, where teaching just rhetoric, when people start to ask the right questions, or you can see and I'm not saying I know everything, but I've got a good sense of how the thought process should evolve and unfold to get to where people do want to go. And to see that happening with people is really cool. I had a call yesterday with a returning client, and you could just tell by the kinds of questions he was asking. He was trying to get his arms. He had a big change in income, right? Big. It wasn't a promotion, but he started a new position with an old friend who had a company.
Positive change.
Yeah, great positive increase. And, he's young, so he's trying to get his arms around what that increase in oncoming cash flow meant in terms of his ability to pay additional premium. Of course, at the same time, he's expecting a new child, right? So there's a degree of uncertainty. The new position is brand new, and so there's a degree of uncertainty there. And so it's and he was using this terminology. He was bringing this to me, trying to get his arms around both the uncertainty involved, but also taking into consideration the much greater ability to pay premium, and trying to walk through, okay, well then how in that sort of mess of circumstance do we determine the actual specific premium number? And then of course, embedded in that, the design or the structure of it, how do you get from there to here?
Yep.
And, I had walk through some of the things I would ordinarily walk through with people to give structure to that process, but you could tell it was much more just slotting in stuff. He had the structure, the mental infrastructure was there, and it was just slotting in and reaffirming what he knew. And by the end of the call, 30, 40 minutes, he had a very clear idea of how that would unfold. He was early, right? It wasn't time yet. He needed more time in the new position to feel good about the ongoing viability of that cash flow, right? Go let the wife have the child and see what that's like, adjust to those, start the adjustment process of those new circumstances. Yeah. And then, you'll have some experiential understanding, not just predictive understanding of what that's like. And then we can revisit. And with that mental infrastructure already there, the right premium number and the type of expansion, who do we get the policies on, all becomes very natural.
Very clear.
Yeah.
It becomes much more clear. That's pretty much, don't you experience that with all clients that are expanding their knowledge?
Yeah.
And the way I say it is, because when we first start, we only know what we've read and listened and watched and studied. And there's always an element of disbelief, doubt, a little bit of faith, in whom you work with, if this thing even can work like it's being promoted. And sometimes it can't because the error is in the promotion, not in the concept. And I say, and people typically start too small, very common. But if they start, right, even though you've gone through all of this, the premium, the liquidity, the duration, who's insured, who owns it, and you go through all that in the beginning, and a part of that process is you're going to get around to an illustration. You're just not starting there. Mm-hmm. So they see the numbers, they get the intellectual understanding, although a lot of it's anecdotal and it's new, so it's all different, and you have all that. But once they get going and have that experience, then it becomes clearer. They become more comfortable, and then they actually take action. They're actually collateralizing, maybe or maybe not. Maybe the collateralization is in the future for some purpose. But maybe they take a loan just to see and walk through that problem. Whatever it is they do, right? They're paying a premium, number one, and they're online looking at all the cash values and everything. So their comfort level goes up.
Yeah.
And then when it actually works in a particular individual situation, whatever it may be, then their confidence level goes up. Mm-hmm. And then that experience of paying a premium, moving up and down our premium, with a premium, whatever their experience is, that's on top of their previous understanding. But it becomes easier and easier, especially, whenever you, for me, I'll speak for myself. After about the fourth year and I'm buying the 6th, 7th, 8th policy, I don't even care anymore.
Yeah.
Just because the companies may be different and there may be, different particulars of a PUA rider or a process, loan process, whatever it is. But it's always the case when people expand, and it's a great thing, they are, conveying what they think, and it's, pretty good, and then there's just minor adjustments.
Yeah, little course corrections, checking each other's work. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's like I think I always go back to like a classroom type example, but where a professor gives homework and then you go work individually, but then you're allowed to work together and you can check each other's work kind of thing before you ultimately turn it in. And then there's another layer of verification. And like by the end of the course, you're supposed to really be on top of it. It's that kind of developmental process.
Yep.
And, there's the Nelson Nash Institute, IBC practitioner, right? Capital P practitioner type thing. But really the policy owner becomes a practitioner in the literal sense of the word, right? And I really enjoy watching that process go from totally uninitiated, neophyte, just know nothing, know very little, right? And it kind of like starstruck, like, is this even possible? Like, oh my gosh, right? Fascinated type, awestruck. And then to student, really studying, right? Understanding, building an understanding, intellectual, just soaking in the knowledge, right? Understanding the mechanics, how the different things work together, to at the end of underwriting, starting into the life of a policy, really practicing and practicing the small things first, just paying the premium, right? Just paying the PUA.
That's a big deal. I mean, everybody wants to, capitalize as soon as possible. I get it, including me, but I'm not going to jeopardize the stability of the policy or increase the future fragility. And there's a reason, and I can't, I made notes today, right? And things I might bring up. But, there's a reason Nelson has, talked about patient capital, and you have to have capital to perform and control the banking function. So shouldn't the whole focus be on premium payment, thinking long range and not being afraid to capitalize? I mean, that is short rift, it's just quite often that the importance of that is jumped over. Building capital. I don't care what's going on. You don't have enough capital for whatever it is. You may not even know what you're going to do in the future.
Right.
But it's going to take capital.
It's very analogous to, it's like the emphasis on cash value over premium is really analogous to like on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube and all the various, platforms, the emphasis on profit over value creation, right? It's always about, what's the number on the quarterly report or at the end of the day or when everything is said and done. And we skip clean over everything that has to be done to create the value in the first place. And it's the same kind of deal, right? Yeah. We emphasize cash value, skipping clean over the fact that really it's all coming from whether a premium was paid and for how long it's been paid and what the magnitude was. And but it's really cool to see that. And then so somebody who is at a relatively advanced stage in being a practitioner themselves, who's, they've taken loans, they've made loan repayments, and now there's a transformation in their financial circumstance, there's additional cash flow, there's new people in the family, right? It's time to expand the system. Well, that's just another stage in the development and that small P practitioner, literal practitioner's development. And it's just very cool to see. And but to have those are different kinds of conversations. Let's say that, right?
Yeah, like absolutely.
Those kinds of conversations are very different than from somebody who's just starting. Yeah. And just because of historical circumstance and the timing of all of this, there's not many people of an agent's capacity, in the capacity of an agent who have experienced those different kinds of conversations. And so there's this appearance, there's this sort of presumption that all it is to be an agent, to be someone who provides policies built for the IBC is to have those initial ones, right? To onboard the brand new uninitiated. When in fact, there's this whole developmental arc that someone will go through, right? And a lot where the advisory conversations are different in content and character.
If those advisory conversations are taking place.
Right. Yes. Right. And that's kind of what I mean is like, if we don't have an appreciation of how that development, how that transformation can look, if we don't take that into consideration, that it can be different, that it's going to grow, it's going to be nuanced, there's going to be different particularities, and that that the relationship 5 to 10 years out is going to look a lot different than it did just when one got their first policy. If that's not taken into consideration, if an agent is just hyper focused on place the first policy, then the probability they're going to wander off, beyond the horizon, off into the wilderness is very high.
Yeah.
Right.
The outcome could be much better. I mean, we're all going to go through the learning curve. And I believe, and I've come to believe this, right? That if you work with an experienced and a knowledgeable agent and advisor, and that's very broad, an experienced, maybe they're doing it themselves, maybe they've done it themselves for a while, knowledgeable, maybe they've been in the life insurance, but they're actually life insurance agents. Since we're writing life insurance and using life insurance to practice becoming our own banker and actually controlling the banking function, now that's more narrow, but we can pick each one of those words apart and go very deep. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, this learning curve that we're all going to go through, and we're all going to pay for education. We're all going to go through it. If you work, in my opinion, with a knowledgeable, experienced agent, advisor, that learning curve will shorten tremendously. By maybe 10 or 15 years is what I believe. I believe I can knock 10 years off of someone's learning curve.
I think that's legitimate because, you've had some guests on the show. We've talked with other people just in a private kind of context at various conferences. And, here I am, be 31 in July. And, I'm listening to other people talk about their experience. And it's like, that I think for just speaking in my own experience, you have had that effect on me, right? Personally, directly. So I think that's evidence that is absolutely the case, right? If you have a good teacher, whatever word you want to use, advisor, coach, whatever, that learning curve does shorten. You can build a better foundation from the get-go, right? And not have to go through all of what I hear about from other clients or other new clients who are sort of, telling their tale, everything that they've had to go through.
Well, they don't, typically they don't have the opportunity to share that type of experience. I mean, who are they going to share it with besides their family, and their spouses are like, I'm tired of you talking about it. I'm tired of listening. Right?
Yeah.
Or I told you if it goes wrong, I told you not to do that, whatever the case may be. They can't talk to all their friends at work. They can't talk to their colleagues,
right.
And they may not want to talk to the previous people that relationship should be, I'm not saying it can't get contentious sometime because of misunderstandings, hurt feelings, or expectations out of line or not aligned. But maybe they can have that conversation. Maybe I got a couple of policies, right, and several years ago. But what I've learned since between then and now, I might not have done that particular way. And so, you engage with someone like myself or you, and it's like, well, this is what I've done. And you can have that conversation deeper compared to going back to the original agent that created all that, because then they would be in a very defensive position. Yeah. This is what we did, and that's why we did it, and so I'm just saying that who you can have that conversation with is a small pool of people.
It is. It is. And I genuinely mean this, like whomever somebody goes and talks to, like these are things that I would just suggest people do. Like there's a part in the book, the whole last chapter is about here's how you should go and approach an agent. Like here's questions to ask. I think there's whole life is brand new to most people. It's got a trash reputation in the financial community. No one's ever heard of the infinite banking concept, where it's Lone Ranger syndrome all over the place. And so, all of this is unique and previously not heard of before for most people. And then it's a unusual type financial transaction. It's an advisory relationship. We're not going to Walmart and pulling something off the shelf. Mm-hmm. Yes, it's a contract. There's a piece of paper, although it's probably digital now, but it's not a tangible thing. It's extremely conceptual, and it's procedural and there's a process that's going to happen over time. And so it's very unusual. It's more of a professional type relationship. But even then, if you think of the different kinds of professional relationships you have, all of that is very oftentimes very deliverable oriented, right? If it's a legal type matter, well, there's a case and there's an outcome. If it's an accountant, there's, well, you're going to do a tax filing, and and yes, in life insurance, there's the policies. There's of course a deliverable, but the nature of this ongoing professional relationship is different than you often would. The context is different than you'd find in other professional type relationships. And so I think that there's just a lack of conversation about how best to approach those relationships as a consumer.
Yeah.
Right.
Keep your thought, but I'm going to interrupt you. There's not a call to action in the back of your book that says call you.
Oh, there's like a web, there's an email, but that's it. It's very, do what you're going to do, Yeah, no call to action.
Okay.
No ClickFunnels. So the professional context is just very unusual. It's very long-term oriented. It's very personal, right? We're talking about your money, probably talking about family relationships and life circumstances. So it's very personal, very private, and in the best case, going to take place and unfold over time. And so how does somebody go and have that conversation? How best do you prepare to have those kinds of conversations? And speaking from experience, but then also just observing what's out there, no one ever talks about that.
What?
Like how do I approach?
I'm continually shocked in these episodes.
But what kind of questions do I ask? Sure. What sort of like personality disposition do I take? Am I going to be aggressive? Do I need to be tough? Or do I just come totally transparent? Do I bring everything to the table right away and, information flood the poor guy? And, how do you do that? Like, and then specifically, what particular question, like what words do I use in the questions that I should ask?
No, this is important. Myself included. We're all, alike in that if I have an interest in something, it could be traveling to Europe, it could be whatever that I have an interest in. And I don't know the particular country, but I don't know this particular thing that I have an interest in. I therefore don't necessarily have the best construction of a question.
Right.
I don't know how to ask necessarily the question. I can try, and I'm very inquisitive, and I'll get it done, and we can all get it done. But helping people or giving examples of how to formulate questions, because maybe you want the answer to this. How do you get to that answer? It's not necessarily just a straightforward yes or no question.
Yeah.
That's invaluable.
Yeah. And I have some suggestions. One of them is look for a process. There's a thing called opportunity cost, right? The value of the foregone alternative. Somebody who is a professional in their business, whatever particular kind of business or industry it is, has a high opportunity cost, right? They could be doing a lot with that next unit of time that they're spending on you instead of doing something else, right? And a real professional is sort of defined by having a high opportunity cost, very specialized, high value per unit of time. And because of that,
it's making my heart race.
Yeah, well, a professional who fits that description must by necessity develop a process where we can economize on time, where time is used as efficiently as possible, because time wasted is extremely costly. It could have been spent generating value somewhere else. And so a true professional who has expertise, who knows that there's a high time value of money, will have a process for that reason. So if you come to somebody and say, describe to me how this would work. If we conditional setups are always great. If we went forward, if we wanted to work together, what would that look like? We're just hypothesizing here. Well, there needs to be a pretty crisp, clean answer, right? Here's the process. And a crisp, clean answer will have, particular events, a certain kind of call or a certain kind of in-person meeting or a video call, whatever it is. But a nice, well thought out process will have a specified number of specific kinds of events, maybe even with specified durations, right? And somebody with the process should be able to pretty quickly, pretty cleanly paint that picture of what that process looks like. So, notice that that's not even content related, right? That's not even a question about, tell me about how a whole life policy works. That's form related. It's process related. And a question like that serves as a great proxy for the content, right? Like if somebody has a very clean, precise process, the likelihood that they know their stuff goes up dramatically, right? Because it's the people who have the high opportunity costs, who are experts in the content, who by economic necessity will develop the process. Right. So if you check for the process first, it's a good indication, a good proxy. Well, that may be that they know what they're doing. Right. And even better than having the specified process would be a rationale or an explanation for why the process is the way it is. Right. So don't just read me the recipe. Don't just say, here, these are the steps we're going to take. Yeah. But when I, as a consumer, ask that question, hey, what's this look like? I'm not just looking for the particular structure of the process. I'm looking for some rationale that motivated the process in the first place, right? Like, why would we take that particular form, right? And if you can get both, if you can get the structure and the form of the process, and then some rationale that seems sensible for the process, okay, now we're starting to cook with grease. Right now we're starting to...
You turned Southern boy right there.
Yeah. You can't get that Texas off of you if you spend many years. But that's just one thing. That's one way to start to get a feel for, and it is a feel, right? It's an intuitive thing. It's hard to put in words. It's hard to put on paper. But when you're trying to evaluate, would this be a good fit? We even use words like, what do you mean a good fit? Like that's not a literal thing, like a hand in glove. That's like a literal, my hand in the glove fits well. But like a good fit with an advisor, it's metaphorical language. Like we don't even have good ways of expressing what a nice, a desirable relationship with an advisor would look like, or with any kind of professional. Asking questions about process is a great way to start to get that intuitive feel.
That's part of the vetting process. It should be. I appreciate that. And it makes me want to answer why we have a process, what the process is. And now all the agents listening, I know you have a process, but you should improve it, right? And speaking to myself too, it's all in love, but it's the constraint of time.
Yes.
That's no question. It's a constraint of time. And if you don't have a process, there's just more things the possibility is going to go up, that things are going to go wrong, and the probability is going to go up of things not going correctly. And so then if things don't go as expected, or and because there's some moving parts in the beginning, right? Going this learning curve, understanding of what you're doing, why you're doing it, why that, why does it look like that, what are we going to do in the unknown future, and all the future is unknown. But to make all that happen, you got to come up with a premium, you got to capitalize the policy, you got to go through underwriting. And 2023 is just not like pre-COVID in the medical era, and then let's say the medical era in the medical field. There's a shortage of nurses, there's a shortage of doctors and medical records and HIPAA and all of that. It takes longer to go through underwriting typically, right? So and there's moving parts in there. So some expectations can, not align with what maybe you expected. Generally, the underwriting process is very, very easy, but it's a process, right? And this whole process of which, you're talking about, I'm just talking about at the very beginning. this whole process, once you get a policy, once you've determined and you have the understanding and you're comfortable and you put your hand to the plow, you've chosen who you're going to work with and all of the reasons why, and they're clear. It's just like, why is there a process? What to expect in the process? What if things go wrong? Oh, wait, there's a process for that. There's the exception to the exception to the exception. This is what we want, it's what we think we want. And then that's even being checked a couple of times, right? But then now you're just really at the beginning, because now you can go capitalize to become your own banker, to finance, to begin controlling the banking function. In the process, or the part of the process that you're specifically talking about, the way I understand it, is this relationship. What does that look like? We have those conversations daily. I mean, that conversation is a part of our process. People look at me, James, you got white hair. You're going to die tomorrow. Well, I don't know. It's God's business, right? Not mine, not yours. But if I do pass away, come to my funeral, okay, or what. My whole point here is I'm going to be like my mentor. I'm going to be like my mentor, graduated at 88 with 4 unfinished projects. His mentor graduated at age 85. So I'm not going anywhere. And because you have processes, because processes exist, and part of that process is the educational learning curve, to shorten that, right? Not to create dependency upon a process or upon anything, especially, an advisor or agent. You do not want to be dependent upon anyone. You especially do not want to be dependent upon a financial advisor, in my opinion, right? Well, as I'm just saying, there's a lot of moving parts to the process, but this idea, becoming your own banker in the unknown future, things change, interest rates go up, interest rates go down. You can't control them anyway. Maybe you want that new shiny object. Maybe you want that automobile, or, oh, wait, no, I changed my mind. I want this. And just to have someone to bounce off ideas, it's really consulting. And that reminds me of all of this conversation reminds me, and I know I brought it up before, but I mean, legitimately, I hosted Nelson probably 30 something times, went to as many as I could go. And I've said it before, I'm going to say it again. Back in the day, that was the only way you could hear Nelson live, is if, you sponsored him and put a group together and put him in front of the group. Right. And it's even a challenge today sometimes to get a lot of people in the room, right? It was a challenge back then too. You want to go talk about what? Life insurance? Anyway, and I had many conversations, but one in particular way back in the day was Ricky. I mean, hadn't talked to him in a while, I'm sure he won't. Anyway, he was in Nacogdoches, Texas, so that's all I'm going to say. Early on, and he put together a seminar with Nelson. He even built a room, right, in his office, right? I say built the room. He named the room, the educational room, the seminar room, the big room where everybody would go, the Nelson Nash room, right? And so anyhow, he brought Nelson to town one time, and I went down there 2 or 3 times. It was about a 4-hour drive from here. And I didn't go to this one. And nobody else did too. That's my point. No one came, right? And we spoke after that and to Ricky, and I'm like, well, what'd you do? He said, it's the greatest thing ever. My daughter had like 10 uninterrupted hours. Me, my daughter and myself, 10 uninterrupted hours with Nelson Nash. And okay, I'll round this out. All of these events that I'd hosted Nelson, I picked him up at the airport. We would go to dinner. We would go to breakfast. We'd go to do the seminar, do the event, and then I would take him back to the airport. I'm an hour and 15 minutes away from the airport. I'm telling you, the amount of time before and after was a beautiful thing. That even reminds me of, I don't want to get my question, but I don't want to forget my question. But he shared with me one time, he said, James, most people go to events to be entertained, right? The ones that come to learn, there's always the event, there's always the seminar, there's always the event, right? But then there's the event after the event, the people who came that didn't come to be entertained. and it would be a whole nother event. Leonard Reed told him that, that one person or that 10 people or the 5 people that are really trying to, they resonate and they want to connect and they want to do whatever, there's the event and then the event after the event. It was pretty cool. And I find that to be true. So, which has helped me, when I speak, I don't try to entertain people. Right. All right.
All of this comes naturally.
Well, I'm not trying to make enemies either. Okay.
That just comes naturally too.
I'm one of the nicest guys I know. One time I was with Nelson and I asked him, I said, Nelson, why life insurance? And I mean, why life insurance? That's a legitimate question, especially since it was mine. I thought it was a great question. I wanted the answer. Nelson, why life insurance? And he said, James, I've learned more from life insurance agents than any other financial advisor I've worked with. Yeah. And this was before he became an agent. Right? I mean, not when I asked the question, but he didn't become an agent until 1964. He was already bought lots of policies and practiced banking, and which is a greater point that I want to get to. And I'm sure I've said this. I don't have anything new for you, okay? But maybe I'll throw something out that's new, like what do you call those little things that like an egg, right? I might throw out an egg.
Yeah.
Okay. So you go to a physician, whatever specialty they practice, man, they've got to have a deep bank of knowledge. Mm-hmm. Right? Then you go to like a general practitioner. They have to have a bit broader, not quite as deep, but broader. Then you go to, like a general surgeon. They've got to have a broader than the general practitioner, deeper than the general practitioner, but maybe not as deep as, the neurologist. Right? Now apply that, and just apply that to the infinite banking world. Apply that to the life insurance world. Life insurance is a component in all the educational materials out there for an advisor. And we've talked about this many times in the CFP, the CFA. The depth of knowledge on life insurance is about as shallow as it can be. We'll talk about term, talk about whole life, and then we'll talk about an ILET, an irrevocable life insurance. So you can place a life insurance policy in the trust, therefore reduce your estate values. Nowhere ever is banking talked about. No. Ever. Okay. So my point here is when, you've got this broad knowledge in the financial world. Okay. Well, maybe you do retirement planning or whatever it is. I know most financial people are all things to all people. Well, that's a generalist then, right? They've got to have a broad knowledge, but it doesn't have to be that deep until they run into a particular problem. Then they call everybody that, supports them to get, this particular case put together. And I'm just sharing, my experience, okay, and my belief, what I've experienced, what I've come to believe. Okay. So now, maybe you do estate planning as a financial advisor. Now you got to have a deeper knowledge on, generational wealth transfer, skipping taxes, estate valuations, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Now let's say you're going to practice the infinite banking concept. You're going to go very deep in life insurance, right? Especially dividend paying whole life insurance issued by a mutual company. Well, the deeper you go on there, it requires a broader knowledge. You got to have some you don't have to practice law, but you got to have some understanding of estate planning and estate valuations and transfer of ownership, transfer of assets. Then you're talking, I don't know, maybe more than one generation. I go to the doctor and I talk to him generationally. He's going to talk about, diseases that are hereditary or personal health habits that, should pass on. I mean, it's going beyond one generation, but not near as deep as the infinite banking practitioner, large P, should be able to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a lot. And I remember 6 years ago, starting out, being like, oh, it is a lot. But to really, all of those various considerations have to be, we have to take into consideration all those various factors, estate planning and just like ordinary financing of asset purchases. Like what's a loan agreement look like with the auto lender? How do I go find the, interest as a percentage of the principal and calculate the true interest cost? Like,
now wait, we don't want to talk about volume. We want to talk about rate.
What do I expect there? But
credit cards.
Yeah. So the conventional financial planning world doesn't consider any of that anyway, right? And I was laughing a bit when you talk about CF, and I always have to smile when I hear about CFP certified. Someone certified them. Oh, that's good. Well, I've taken, maybe it was a mistake, maybe not, but taken some of these courses that the American College requires, and there's material in there that's just wrong. Like
what?
in relation to life insurance. So I see those little parts, and then I'm wondering, well, how much of this other stuff is right? It's like, so yeah, and rarely is there ever even a mention of a PUA rider or anything like that.
That's where the dividends go. Nothing more. That's one line. Maybe a line and a half.
So it's really unfortunate, but yeah, getting back to that idea of how to navigate a professional relationship and what recommendations are. We talk about checking for process and the rationale behind the process. Another thing I would suggest is don't get married to your convictions right away.
Whoa. Let's go a little deeper on that. I'm married to a couple of them.
Well, but I'll explain when the time is right to do that, right? It's not when you just first start learning about something.
No.
That's a great time to just date those ideas. Right?
Kick them around.
Just
swipe left on most of them.
Yeah. Right. Loosen the grip.
Yeah.
Flirt a little bit, and then be open armed. Be open.
Well, listen, how much time do you have in your process for people to flirt a little bit?
Well, this goes hand in hand with another recommendation, which is to do your preliminary research.
Oh, okay.
Right. And so the vetting, the dating, the time on the app, swiping, that's a part of the process too. And you don't have to find and maybe shouldn't find total conviction that early on. Can it work? Love at first sight. People get married right away, stay married 50 years, then pass. Does it happen? Sure. I've heard stories. Does it happen a lot? No. And so it's okay to flirt and be open-minded, open-armed, open-handed at that point.
But you're not gripping on to convictions.
Right. And then importing them into a new advisory conversation. Right. So I can tell whether that's happened when someone has a first call with me and they use the words I know and I need and this must, right? Conviction type.
Absolutes.
Conviction. Yeah. Absolutes. Conviction type phrases where right? You spent 3 months online watching TikTok videos and now it's like, probably not. Right. Maybe.
Well, they know what they listen to.
Yeah. And so, but even if you encounter something that maybe it's this podcast, maybe it's something else, the mechanic series, whatever, that you find extremely compelling and you feel like, wow, that really is right. Okay, great. What I'm saying is keep a loose grip. And when you go to talk to an advisor, present the idea that you think you're so convicted about in that open-minded, open-armed, open-handed type format, right? I think I need. I've heard, for instance, I've heard that it may be right. There's this air of it might be that way, but it doesn't have to be that way, right? Maybe it's better to have a very long-term oriented base premium payment timeline, right? I've heard this idea of a policy being paid up very late in life. It seems like, right? It seems this way. It's not necessarily this way, but it seems like that would mean I could pay premium for a very long time, and premium payment seems to be a good thing. So if it is, then maybe I want to do it for a long time. What do you think about that? Right? To the advisor. Right? So I'm presenting an idea. It's not, here's my
I love it. I'll show you how that happens.
Yeah, it's not presented as this is the way it's going to be.
Right.
You know, it's not tyrannical. It's not authoritative. It's not oppressive. It's just
how much time do you have in your process for that?
This is embedded throughout the process, right? Because these type of suggestive, you know, it all comes back to what Nelson said. If you know what's going on, you'll know what to do. It's this very bottom up idea where the quality of the idea it provides the guiding direction, right? We don't need to impose something top down. It doesn't need to be, you will do this. This is how it's done. No explanation, you know, just accept it or else. It's, here's the idea. Here's why. Here's the context. Here's how the idea compares to others. And here's the underlying rationale, right? If that's all done well, then the direction becomes clear. I mean, because I have some clients who will, and I don't think it's not like malicious. They don't, but one of the first questions is, how much should I pay? And it's like, I have no idea, right? And nor will I ever tell you that, right? You're not going to be taking instruction from me. That's not what this is, right? There's going to be this unfolding, evolving, developmental process where I love this phrase of, developing a higher and higher resolution, right? A more clear and clear picture where the right number will become clear. And by the way, you're going to tell me what it is, and you're going to tell me the structure, and all of that's going to come from you. My role is to help develop the conceptual understanding, to develop the contextual understanding, how the industry works, the things that we have to accept, right? We have to accept modified endowment contract rules. We have to accept the way cash value grows in a policy. There are certain sort of, would you say, exogenous or given dynamics, things that we've got to just understand for the way they are. And then given that understanding at the level of rationale, right? Not just at the superficial level of that's how it is, right, but here's why things are the way they are. Those two things combined, plus your circumstances, all your peculiarities, individual circumstances, those two things put together, at the end of a well-structured process, the direction will become very clear.
I would only add to that the unknown future.
Yeah. That all of this is imbued with that, right? Like, your income now is not what it's going to be a year or 2 or 3 years, or all of that's going to change, and that should be taken into consideration in my view, in a specific part of the process when you're designing policies. But getting back to the original point there of don't get married too early to your convictions, that can be used in any kind of professional relationship. Because, by the way, if you come to someone who really knows their stuff and you've got all of your instructions for them, it's not, the likelihood that that's going to work well is very low, right? Like, you don't go to a heart surgeon and tell him how he's going to, tear apart your insides, right? It's, you go a little more open-minded, right? You don't go to the mechanic and say, do this, that, skilled professionals are not order takers. Somebody who wants to be an order taker who wants to be a yes man is looking to get paid quickly. And maybe that works, but I don't know that that's the best setup for an optimal outcome. So this kind of, my belief is that this kind of approach, this kind of open-handed approach where it's suggestive, I've heard this idea that, what do you think? Right? And then always looking for rationale. I had a client, I don't know if he got this from me, I don't know if you heard this on here, but he goes, what does solving the banking function mean to you? And I'm like, what a good question. Like, yeah. And so I gave him my view. This is a capitalization strategy. It's what all of conventional finance neglects: control over more and more financial value of a high quality nature, meaning easily accessible, transforms the economic landscape, like things that we go all into that. But it was a great question. Yeah. And I'm like, it's literally the only time I've ever been asked that by a new client. And I'm like, wow, what would other people say? Do people have answers for that? How many maybe relatively less optimal relationships could have been avoided if that question were presented up front from the beginning. Anyway, I think really good, by really good, I mean precise, but open-ended, not married to convictions type questions, searching for process and searching for rationale for the process all up front. And you've asked a couple of times, well, how much time do you have for that in your process? These things don't take long. In my view.
So they're not built into your process.
No, this is handled in the first step.
Yes.
This is handled right up front.
No question.
Where it doesn't need to take a long time.
It shouldn't take a long time, and it doesn't take a long time unless there's some ulterior motive or, misunderstanding or out of line expectation. Yeah. Look, I jotted down a few notes, which I rarely do, but I do sometimes. Which fits right in with our conversation. The infinite banking concept, right? Becoming your own banker is still relatively new and unheard of.
Yeah.
Yes, it's become people, the general public, and even in the financial world, it's getting more and more notice, right? So it's ever expanding, the people that are being exposed to it, but it's still in its infancy, in my opinion. This idea that you can control the banking function, the idea that you can become your own banker. So, I think your book is going to help just expand the frontiers of knowledge for someone. I mean, that's why I get up every weekend almost and record things, to put it out there in the big wide world. Yes, I get flack. I get it, but I love you anyway, right? But I'm just saying, even so, to the consumer, it's foreign, right? Counterintuitive, the opposite of what you've been told to do, the opposite of what you may have been doing for years. So there's that learning curve, but then there's everything new. There's an automatic resistance typically, right? And then there has to be a discount to it, and then it takes time before, everybody should be doing this. It exists in the financial world too, right? Because in the financial world, however they practice, a financial professional, they have their own particular views and experience with life insurance and what they do or what they don't do, or what they don't like, what they've chosen not to like. Which
company pays the highest commission?
Yeah, with the closed hand, they're okay. And I think that this immaturity is of the concept people being exposed to it, the breadth of the exposure, still juvenile, infantile in my mind, because you can see if you just step back and as an agent or advisor, you experience this daily with the people that you engage with, right? The people, they're sharing with you where they're at, what they understand, and have for the last 6 years, right? You can see that, as an agent, advisor in your own daily practice. You can also see it in the financial world, how financial professionals, they want to get paid commission or whatever it is, or, I think this is the only way to do things or the best way to do things, and life insurance, just life insurance, whatever is between their ears, this closed, preconceived idea that, I'm not going to change. You can even see their knowledge within the industry, even with the life insurance home office companies and all the VPs and the RVPs. And you can see their maturity over the years, right? Just like you would see and I'm not being negative. I'm just being observational, that you can see the maturity in the thinking, the development of the thinking, the increasing of the complexity, and even the nuances, which is very important. There's a lot of nuances, especially on this podcast, in my opinion. That's why people tell me all the time. I listen to it 2 or 3 times. It's great. I love it. And there's not enough content out there. I get it. But you can see the development of your clients, especially when they come back. They have
with clients for sure, but tell me more of what you mean by this home office thing.
Well, what I mean by that is the Big Blue out there, the big company that released that memo in January. So important. It was a first field memo they released where they, won't allow their agents to talk about banking or whatever. Big life insurance company, right? Well, obviously, knowledge repels them or whatever. But that's an immature thinking. You know, they're holding on to their preconceived ideas and maybe their past experiences with, you know, leveraged life insurance policies. There's nothing new right under the sun. So there was the banking function, controlling the banking function wasn't taught prior to, on a large scale, prior to Nelson Nash. The idea that you could borrow, if you have a cash value, it's a contractual right that you have in that life insurance contract to collateralize that cash value. There's nothing new, right? So these life insurance companies have had a cash value for a long time. And then they've had a loan provision for a long time. So they have a particular, historically, an experience with leveraged policies and outstanding loans against policies. And obviously it wasn't good. Mm-hmm. You know, not to mention the fact that, you know, they pay a certain dividend rate that they have to supplement from other parts of their enterprise, and they can't lower that because of who they are, the dividend, right? And so they don't want a bunch of outstanding loans, you know. And I'll go deeper into that later. But my point is, other companies, right, that early on that were exposed to Nelson's work, and the two mutual companies that he went through his career with, they shut him down. You know, they're like, nope, you know, the arrival syndrome. You can't tell me anything about life insurance. I work in the home office. Mm-hmm. Right. Well, there are other companies that listened to it, listened to Nelson, and said, yeah, we'll embrace the idea. Maybe a couple of them just needed premium dollars. I don't know. But you can see how the life insurance companies, I have seen how life insurance companies react to their experiences with agents that practice the infinite banking concept.
Yeah.
And you can see the maturity. A couple of them have developed products. I'm not saying they're the best products developed, but specifically for the infinite banking concept.
Yeah. It always, you know,
so they go from infantile maybe to juvenile, but they're
adolescent.
Still adolescent. There you go. But there's still growth and maturity that can be seen and observed, right? Even with the life insurance companies, even with the financial agent and advisor out there. And my point here, a point here is, you can see some of the easy early mistakes that are common when I first am exposed to this. Man, I got to get everything in, pay a premium as short as possible, get as much cash value as soon as possible. And the riders be damned, or the construction be damned. Oh, you're getting lost in the weeds if you want to talk about all these things and riders. And then, no, all of that matters. But my point here is, you can see the maturity of the industry, right? And the concept being out into the general public, and the general public being exposed to it. And you can see it individually. We all experience it. You know, what I knew 20 years ago is sure as heck not what I know today. Thank God. Yeah. Right. That's my point. And, well, I don't want to, you keep going. I don't want to.
No, there's a growing impact for sure. And it comes with all of its challenges, you know, as there are any kind of challenges in developmental maturity.
Well, you can tell where, like, an advisor is, or an agent, by the way they construct policies.
Yes.
Right. And when you see these, if your policy looks like your policy, looks like your policy, looks like your policy by structure, they're wrong. Just straight out, they're wrong. Right. But that's the maturity or the experience level, or it could be a character issue too, I guess. I don't want to jump over that, of where they're at.
Yeah. And even in the structure, I don't want to be like, we're paving the way, but like the premium structure conversation, there's no formality to it. Like this is not a standardized part of the language of the industry. Life insurance companies, like some of the relatively more attentive home office staff will talk in terms of premium structure, but that's only because they know the agents are communicating in that language, and there's no formality to it. Like, you know, if I say 40/60, I do mean that 40% of the total annual outlay is going to cover the base and the term rider, if there is one, premiums together as perfectly as possible, and then 60% is the PUA. That's how I communicate structure, but that's not how everybody communicates.
Somebody could take that 40-60, where 40% of the base is the base only, and 60 is the PUA in the term.
And the term, yeah.
Right. So then you don't even see the use. Well,
or they might switch it around entirely. The first number could be the PUA.
Yeah.
The second number could be the term premium may not even fit anywhere in there. And it gets even more difficult if it's annually renewing term where the premium changes. Well, then the structure is going to change year to year. And so like that, the language itself is informal and is kind of emerging out of this whole, the ongoing broadening of exposure to IBC, right? As more and more people hear the language of the infinite banking concept, the premium structure language starts to proliferate more and more. And there's a unstructured, sort of spontaneous, organic, linguistic developmental process that happens there. And that's hard for people to get their arms around, especially for home office people who don't think in those terms, right? They think in terms of death benefit and the conventional insurance planning type scenarios and, add some designations on it. And they're older, let's say, more conventional type mindset is even more inculcated from all of this new way of thinking, about the banking function.
Please change the language on me. Please change it. It's hard enough as you grow, mature in age, the language does change, whatever. Classical language doesn't change, but, some of it may be organic. Other language is structured and chosen on purpose.
Sure.
Right.
I just meant specifically with the idea of structuring a premium or designing a premium. That did not come top down.
No, absolutely not. I don't know how many. I don't want to go back that far, but I and I'm not whining. It became clear to me early on. The structure was very important through practicing. Right. Very important. And the companies differ with their products and what have you. And so I've been hollering about structure for a long time. And I've heard, you're an IBC purist. Before that, it was, you're getting lost in the weeds. Before that, it was like talking to a group of people and what I'm saying is going over their heads. And I'm like, wait a minute, isn't the home office in here? Aren't these life insurance agents in here? The structure is important. It's very important. But your structure may be or should be different than someone else's structure.
Yeah. I hear that a lot. There's certain people in the IBC type movement who will say, it's always something taken from Nelson, but then kind of twisted a little bit, right?
Right.
Like it's process, not product. Mm-hmm. So, Nelson used to say that, but it doesn't follow that we should be unconcerned with product at all.
Well,
right?
you jump over other things that he says in his book. Is that banking is a process, not a product. No question.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, well, that doesn't mean then, therefore, focus only on the process and not the product, because he also said in here many times, different places, that you, the agent, the advisor, you need to have a firm understanding of life insurance. How about that? Well, life insurance is a product.
Yeah.
So,
product does matter.
It does matter. But it doesn't, banking is still a process, though.
Sure.
Right? Two different things. Right? Oh, now we're just going to control the banking function with life insurance. Okay, well, then you ought to know a product. And then structure within a product does matter, especially as it's applied to you and your capital. Yeah. Then it becomes very important.
And when things go wrong, it can really create a lot of freaking work. And I have a current client who orphaned by a prior agent, brought a policy. The policy was built to accept PUA premium in excess of the MEC limit. There wasn't enough term. The base premium wasn't high enough. And so now, and this guy, bless his heart, is, going to examine the curvature of every letter in a word. He's as detailed. He's
going to apply his previous experience to you?
He's had this difficulty in the past, and so now there's a degree of skepticism, and so everything is going to be studied down. Yeah. And okay, fair enough, we'll do that. But so he wants to know, like, to the penny, how much PUA premium can be paid. And, does the number on the in-force illustration take into consideration that there's a modal premium charge on the monthly premiums already paid? And what is that?
A wife involved? Can you talk to her instead of him?
No, this is all the one dude, bless his heart. And then, how much more in PUA can be paid? And does that number line up with what I was told previously? And is that on the in-force illustration? I mean, to go and how many in-force illustrations are we going to order? And, does that take, can I get that in a 2-week turnaround? It's like, probably not. I mean, so my point is an improper foundation and a product with a flawed design can just create a wake of disaster after the fact.
And it creates an awful lot of work for a young man like you. Listen, I'm not
complaining. Like, I'm happy to do it and we resolve it, but
you're conveying some of what goes on, and they don't know that. They don't know.
And that's what I'm saying. And it's a pain in the rear for him. Mm-hmm. And, oh, by the way, add a 0 to all of that. Let's consider what these problems look like at scale.
Oh, yeah.
And tell me how much fun that's going to be.
Yeah, well, let me, without one-upping you, this was last week or two, a guy reaches out and said, hey, this is what I've done. I bought a policy on myself. And then the next year, I bought policies on my wife and children, I believe. And then I was orphaned. No kidding. So you buy a policy 1 year, you buy more policies on. Now everybody in your life or everybody in your family has policies. So then you're orphaned. Right. Okay. So
it's not funny. I shouldn't.
It is not funny. It's really not funny in this particular case. He calls around, talks to different people, and he's just swiping left from his experience, right? No process. Oh, what? You mean I can't even? You're not even available? Okay. Then, and it was I didn't ask for him. He said, can I send you illustrations? I said, your illustration? Well, no, on this particular case, I said, yeah, send them on. Because he was diagnosed with a terminal illness. And he got a jank structure. Right?
Yeah.
And I'm just saying, then he goes to other people and they say, well, do this or this or this. And it's like, I'm sharing with you. I'm not sharing everything behind the numbers, and I'm not sharing all that. But what he was encouraged to do in the situation that he's in are wrong.
Mm-hmm. Now, you told me about some of this off camera. And it's really,
I've had a couple of, is that?
I think so, where he was advised to throttle down premium in the prior contracts.
Just use a death benefit that'll be dang near nothing at his natural mortality anyway. And hopefully I say terminal. I mean, God bless him. I pray that he recovers, and there's always that possibility, that he'll recover and not short. He's uninsurable is my point.
Right. And he's going to stop paying premium in the policies he already owns.
Yeah, so. And you're the primary breadwinner. It's like, who do these people that they engage with, do they have a process? We talk about it in and there's some things that should occur before somebody pays a premium. No question, there's understanding, where's the money coming from, the premium amount, the premium structure, and the policy number. But more than that, it's almost like when they call and say, hey, how much premium should I pay? Or, hey, I want to pay this premium. It's like, I don't know, and why?
Right.
And I know that I can go online today and I can fill out somebody's form and request an illustration and have it emailed to me, Monday, probably because they don't work weekends. I'm suggesting that they work. Sorry. And it's like, no. There's life. I mean, you're dealing with life insurance. You're dealing with personal planning, financial planning. It is like, it's a $5,000 policy is not going to solve all your problems. $10,000, whatever the number is, whatever you do financially, whether you did it 10 years ago, you did it today, you're going to do it 15. All these things you're going to do over this time should be congruent with everything else that you've done. And most people go through life and it's all piecemeal. I bought something for my brother-in-law, did a 401k, I did an IRA. One was Roth, one was traditional. I bought an annuity, I bought some real estate, I did this, I did that, had a business, sold it, whatever. And, I've had 15 advisors because they orphan you in a heartbeat. As soon as they get paid, they're gone. And it's at the end of the day, if you don't correct that, at the end of the day, when you get into retirement or passive income time, you have all of these things.
Yeah, go ahead and unwind all that.
They're not consistent. They're not simple. They're complex. They're not congruent. There's no, but I also understand that, while we're young, we're working hard to accumulate and amass, your empire, whatever it is you're doing. But it's okay to make minor adjustments along the way, whether it's vetting an advisor, an agent, or there's minor adjustments that need to be made continually. Mm-hmm. Nelson was an airplane driver, said it many times. If I take off from Florida, I just want to go to California from Florida. All I have to do is point the plane east when I take off. That's all I got to do. Mm-hmm. But the closer I get to California, I better make some adjustments or I'm going to wind up in Chicago, New York, or Cuba. Right? And I know that's overly simplified, but tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah. So
I want to say, do you have more?
No, go.
Okay. I mean, I don't hear your stomach growling, so I think I'm okay.
You're good.
Okay.
Can't hear well. No, I'm kidding.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Don't act like these things won't happen. I have a lot of loss of hearing. And so Mr. Griggs regularly, they can put little things in your ear to fix that. There is a solution. Okay, I want to, the idea of becoming your own banker is still new. It's relatively new, and you can see the maturity and your experiences and my experiences, the consumer's experience, the amount of knowledge, good, bad, or indifferent, that is chasing you down on your social media platforms. You can see the growth or the degeneration sometimes of people's actions. It's very, very simple and fundamental where to start. And I just want to point out a few things. I don't think I can in the future, I don't believe I'm going to change this. I might add to it, but you've got to read Nelson's Becoming Your Own Banker, right? 5th edition. You cannot talk, even if you're an agent or advisor, you're vetting someone, you cannot talk intelligently about the infinite banking concept, becoming your own banker, without a thorough understanding of this. And you're not going to get that from one reading or one skimming or 2 readings. Okay. And then his second book, Building Your Warehouse of Wealth, nice little blue book. It's an easy read. This is an easy read. I happen to like how privatized banking really works with, Dr. Robert Murphy and Carlos Lauer. It brings in sound money, infinite banking, and let's see. And then the video, Nelson's 6.5 hour video that was recorded, him live doing a seminar. Of course, used to give 10-hour seminars, and they took a couple hours out of it, chopping it down. Whether you own that and you have the plastic that you have to plug into your children's game system, or you access it digitally, this is fundamental. This knowledge is fundamental for your understanding. You may read this, and all of that costs maybe $300, right? I'm just saying that you can't talk intelligently about the infinite banking concept unless you have this foundational material, right? So that's my encouragement, right? Just vet the idea, discover Nelson's work, right? And vet it to see if it can help you and your family. And then everything, in my opinion, within the infinite banking concept, I harp on it. I get it. It's oversimple. I get it. The 4 fundamental rules that Nelson had. They're fundamentals, 4 rules, 4 basics. Number 1, think long range. Number 2, don't be afraid to capitalize. Number 3, don't steal the peace. And number 4, don't do business with banks. Then he added number 5, rethink your thinking. But beyond that, right? I don't know how many times I've talked about this on an episode, but if my eyes are dimming too, but I can still see. I think it's at page 28. The human factors. Yeah, the human problems. Number 1, it's in part 2 of BYOB, Understanding Parkinson's Law, Willie Sutton's Law, the Golden Rule, and then he winds up with the Arrival Syndrome, and then the Use It or Lose It. Okay, and that's on page 35. I just want to bring out a couple of points that Nelson wrote about. He's addressing the article in Fortune magazine of 1995 that was titled EVA Works, but not if you make these common mistakes. The points made looked like this. All right, number 1, they didn't make it a way of life. Number 2, most managers try to implement EVA too fast. Number 3, the boss lacks conviction. Number 4, managers fuss too much. And then number 5, training gets short shrift. Now, why would Nelson add that in there? Talking about, economic value added. We've talked about that. Stern Stewart, Coca-Cola. Nelson wrote about it. He talked about it in his 6.5. Why would he point those out? Oh, I don't know. If you commit to becoming your own banker and you don't make it a way of life, like you're not going to willy-nilly go buy a policy and throw some money at it and then, fairy dust and rainbows are going to grow. And I'm not saying you have to run your grocery money through there and finance every, $10, $20, $100 or $1,000 purchase that you make either. Not saying that. Right? But you're not going to willy-nilly throw money into a life insurance policy and call it good and expect these great results. It's not going to happen. You're going to be disappointed. And then most managers try to implement EVA too fast. Well, isn't that what's going on with these jank structures? We're trying to take over the banking function tomorrow when you created it over the last 10, 15, 20, 30 years. There are no shortcuts. There are no shortcuts. And you know this. You know there are no shortcuts. Okay. Why would he add in the boss lacks conviction? Why would he add that in there?
Owner wandering off into the wilderness.
Oh, you're going to drag your spouse along with you? You know she's the boss. If she ain't happy, you're not happy. I mean, that's just an example. I know all of y'all married up and your wives are lovely. No disparagement. I'm just saying, the boss who you don't have conviction when you start a policy to understand the duration of premium that should be paid. Policies are designed for premiums to be paid. All of the benefits of a life insurance contract come from the result of the premium being paid. And then training gets short shrift. You mean to tell me most of these guys out here that you brought up, you've experienced, I don't want to paint so broadly. You mean to tell me a process is important? Even this idea of a consultative relationship where iron sharpens iron after a policy is delivered? What? And your clients come back to you and they say, well, James, I'm doing this or this. I'm thinking about buying a winery. I'm thinking about buying a car dealership. I'm thinking about buying a train. I'm thinking about putting a rail port in the back of my commercial building. Here's what, it's like, okay, yeah, well, you can call your attorney on that and they're going to tell you the legalities if that's within their, and I'm not saying I have all the knowledge and all the answers. I'm still a student, but I've got a lot of experience, and I'm just saying these are the relationships which adds to training. Not only what you do, what you learn from others, right? But to have someone, if I can't call the previous agent that delivered to me what I think is subpar now, I'm not saying it's bad or should be replaced or anything, but I don't think it, from what I understand now, is subpar. I might have bought it 2, 3, 10 years ago. I can't have an open relationship or conversation. I can't even access them. Really? Well, tell me, how can you short shrift training any greater than that? Right? Oh, maybe not pick up a book and reread it every now and then. Maybe you guard or pay attention or be very considerate about what you listen to without the firm foundational understanding, knowledge, and experience, right? So, I mean, if you've been practicing the infinite banking concept a year or 2, 6 months, 9 months, I mean, the longer you practice that, the clearer the noise is going to be. You'll be able to spot it a mile away. And then you can avoid it. All right? All right.
I like it.
Yeah, perfect. All right. Look, thanks for listening.
Good place to end.
Yeah, right.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you for joining us on the Banking with Life podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe and click on that little notification bell. Otherwise, join us on Apple Podcasts and Stitcher for weekly content.